Hey everyone, great to see you. I'm so excited that we're here. We're talking about computer science, why your kids need it, and what they can do with it, and what happens if they don't, and what computer science is in the first place. And I've got Curtis Grover here with me today. I'm very excited about this. He is an expert teacher in computer science. He's been teaching for a really long time. And now, guess what? He's also a homeschool dad, which is awesome. And so he really knows what we need in and out for computer science. And I'm very excited to bring him to you today to talk about all the things computer science, because I know my kid's super into computer science. And we were talking about that before he met Curtis. And there are so many aspects so many places, so many avenues that we can go with it. And so we want to talk about on a very high level today what's really some of those avenues we can go down, how we can prepare our kids to be functional, even if they're not planning on being a techie or being in the tech industry, because I know Curtis has taught a lot of kids like that. And
Mhm.
so I wanted to explain to you just what is the lay of the land, what constitutes a called computer science class that's recognized, that colleges would accept, that high school transcript would be valid, those kinds of things. We're really going to get into some of the nitty gritty of that and some higher level stuff too. So welcome, Curtis. I'm excited to have you with us today. And we have chatted, and I'm super excited because you bring a lot of great perspective and something that's really needed for the homeschool industry. We don't have a lot of computer science in available to us in classes or just even resources. So I know, because my son's been making up his own.
Yeah.
He's been just asking ChatGPT to teach him, Python code and things like
Mhm.
that, and just playing with it and playing with AI. So I am excited for you to share and why you're so passionate about computer science and why we need to learn this in the first place.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me on. Yeah, computer science for me was kind of a journey because it was one of those things that I thought was just cool, right? When I remember in college taking my first computer science course, and like, oh, this is gonna be so cool. I was a math major, so I was already nerdy, but the just the kind of the excitement of it for me was a lot. But my first experience with it wasn't really that exciting. It was just kind of learning parts of the computers and stuff, and it kind of put a sour taste in my mouth originally. But and then I was kind of retaught through on when I started teaching. I had a mentor who was teaching computer science, and he really showed me kind of the world of computer science, and that just ignited my passion. Just to see the math, the logic, and the things that that I tried to preach as a math teacher just come alive on the screen. You know, to see that, like, how in math class they're always like, "When are we going to use this in real life?" Like, well, here's it working. Here's that. That Pythagorean theorem you used in geometry class that you didn't think you were ever going to use. Well, we're using it right now. And things like that was pretty cool to see that happen. And like I said, seeing the actual code you type make an impact on what was happening. And there's obviously so much application you can use with it too. And so that just, I don't know, that's what kind of ignited my passion, seeing students actually enjoy like the math and the logic concepts that are so important to learn, the logic and the analytical thinking that is developed in math classes, but really shown and enhanced in, I think, in the computer science classes that I was teaching. So, um,
Yeah, that's such a great point. I absolutely love that because having our kids in a math book is one thing, but then, and even like, okay, they have word problems, but
mm,
seeing them apply those things in something that makes something real is what I've always
right,
focused on with learning, and getting an audience outside your home, your classroom, outside of the textbook is so important. And creating something like an app, and I'm dating myself a little bit here, but when I was in high school, I learned basic language, and I remembered like doing took all semester to create one stupid little program.
mhm,
But it was amazing to like watch that come about, and like you told it what to do and it
mhm,
created something.
right,
So I love that, and it really allows for our kids to be super creative too and have something that they think up in their individuality and their passions, and just have that come to life. So I agree with you there for sure. And one of the things that I definitely want to touch on today is the practicality and the importance of them learning that for today. So
mhm.
can you touch on that a little bit? Like, why do kids need to learn it to be successful in their life.
Yeah, well, I won't be too much on the just problem solving skills that you develop with this. I think that carries, and that I used to say that in math classes too, is just the problem solving skills that we're developing here is what you're going to take throughout the rest of your life. Whether that's relationally, with a job, with a task you're trying to do, or a financial issue you're coming across, right? Those are all problem solving skills that you need to develop as a human being, right? So, um, but I think there's more importance to it too. Just because just industries, my brother actually was recently job hunting, and like I was actually helping him with learning computer science stuff, just because a lot of the jobs, even though weren't computer science related, were I have to be able to communicate with programmers, and being able to have these conversations were important. And there's a lot of jobs where like you take what someone else has created and you have to explain it to a client to know how to use it. So you have to have this communication that happens and a baseline understanding at least of it. And I think the more you understand, obviously, the better you can communicate um, and serve your clients and those things. So I think just that application of it is really becoming a bigger field, and especially with AI too, like being able to like because AI is basically computer science. It's code, right? So it's not an actual person, right? It's code that is feeding that. So having those understandings and how things work really are just going to enhance your opportunities.
Absolutely. And my dad was talking the other day I was talking with him about he used to teach medical students but he also taught them how to deal with the computer stuff because that's something you
Mm.
just can't get away from. And he was telling them that about the he taught them the inside workings, like how what each part does in the computer, like what's a GPU, what's a CPU, what's a and all these
Right.
things, and what's the difference, how does that work, and what does this hook together. And they were like, why do we need to learn this? And he's like, if you don't understand what each component does and how you don't understand how it works together and what part you're using for what. And so if you want to have a bigger program, you need more, that does more functions. You might need a bigger GPU. You might need, like all these things. And they were
Mhm.
like, oh, that kind of makes some sense. So I love what you're saying there about having the foundational understanding of how the programs work and what's behind it, so that you can communicate and not and just use it in general. I feel like you
Right.
can't. I mean, you everything has an app. So like you can't
Right.
not you can't not go through the world without using apps on our phones, and
Mhm.
our workplace, and everything that we do has an app. So we have to having an understanding of that is super important. And I feel like we've already kind of covered this, but like what happens if we don't cover this computer science stuff and we don't their kids don't understand this now when they're in their high school, in their middle school journey? What happens?
Mhm.
Like, how hard is it to learn it later?
I think I think it's definitely. I think you're more impressionable and you absorb more information when you're younger. So I think it's a little easier. I think so when you're younger, because when you're older, there's a lot more other factors going on in your life and pressures. So it makes it a little harder to, I think, concentrate and isolate on what it is you're trying to learn in a lot of situations. Um, but like I said, even getting as you're growing through it, those skills that you're developing will aid with that, in computer science too. Um, so that's a pretty involved question, but I think like you're saying is there's a lot there where if you aren't doing it now, it just is the longer you wait, the more difficult I think it becomes. Not that it's not possible, because there's a lot of people who career switch, and that's a big thing. A lot of people do career switch to coding type jobs. So it's not that it's not possible. I think it's just you have to be very intentional about it when you're older. You have less grace, I think, when you're later, because there's less leeway because you have to really refine how you're studying it. Then,
Absolutely. Yeah, and you're really focusing on what you need to right now instead of
right?
like the bigger picture of it all,
Mhm.
which I think is a good point. Having a bigger picture is something that really makes a difference for learning it in more specifically in the other niches later.
And as you
So,
say that, it kind of made me think too. I think when you're younger, it allows you to be a little more creative. Right when you're older, you're just like, I got
mhm.
to get the skill down a little bit. And when you're younger, that creativity you had mentioned earlier is really such a big part of computer science. And I know when we were marketing to girls in a lot of schools we're at, like it was big on like, well, we're just not code. They want it to have value. There's an importance to it. And so I think that is more developed at a younger age, I think, than when you're a little older too.
Absolutely. And that creativity, that imagination, that's one of the beauties of working with coding and working with computers
Mhm.
and building apps and things like that. I know my son, every time I'm like, I wish there was something that I, and he'd be like, I can build you that. I can code that for you. I can do
Yeah.
that. He's still working on the first one, he was saying.
Right.
But he's learned a lot in the way, and the technology has changed as he started working on it. So things that
Mm.
he's learning more as he goes, and really experimenting with a lot of things, which is that problem solving. And he's like, oh, I need another library for this, and I didn't even know what a library. I'm like, library with books, but apparently there's libraries for codes too.
Yeah. Oh, big time. Yep.
Yeah, so I that brings me to the it's ever changing, right?
Mhm.
So the industry and technologies are always changing. So what goes inside of a computer science class? Like, what do our kids, the essentials that they need to learn?
Um, it depends on the language a little bit there because there are different types of languages, right? There are some object-oriented languages and some more method-based, and some are dynamic, some aren't, and so each language kind of has its own, uh, dare I say, dynamic to it. Even though I just
You're
used that
talking
word.
about computer language, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, okay.
computer language.
The
Yes,
coding
right,
language.
right.
Yeah.
So each language has its kind of different things you have to learn about it, but it all comes down to like design, logic, problem solving, right? Being able to discover issues and fix those issues, very real life situations, right? But specific to programs, right? And you're solving problems is what you're doing. So a lot of the courses I've taught, the intro courses that you teach are kind of a little bit more syntax, but still problem solving. You're learning the design, how to make methods, proper way of designing code. When you get to like the AP computer science courses, you're getting a lot more in depth now. You're getting into the weeds of it, a little bit of data structures too. And then when you get to a more advanced class, like a data structures class, it's not just get the code to work anymore. It's what's the most efficient way or what's the best way of doing this code. Because you might find, there could be like 10 ways to solve this problem that we have. But one of them, you know, might run way faster. Well,
Mm.
maybe that's what we want. Maybe we want this to run really fast and efficient. We don't want the user to be waiting for it and then get bored and move on, Or maybe you have a storage problem. Maybe you can only hold so much space. And so then you have to think about what's containing this. How much can we save space here? Because if we have too many items in here, then it could crash on us, and maybe you want the best of both worlds, or maybe you want extreme of one. So this is where like that critical thinking, that design is really important. And that's my favorite class to teach because it's not just, okay, yeah, I can get to work. We can get it to work, right? But we want it to work in a
Yeah.
special way, right? In the best way possible for our specific situation. Matter of fact, there's a lab that we do where you have to solve the same task, but with a certain like importance put onto it in four different ways. So one of them is like we just want us to run as fast as possible, right? And the
Mhm.
other extreme is we want, okay, is least amount of storage is used up as possible, and we
Mhm.
evaluate which one is the best in which scenario.
That makes a lot of sense. That's so
Mm.
fascinating. And I think about like coding, and my son's super into it, and he really is learning so much on his own. He's
Mm.
using AI to supplement that. And so while we're talking about coding, like is it good for our kids to utilize it? Because I know that's what coders are doing now, right?
Mhm.
They're not
Oh yeah.
just they're not just writing lines there of code. They're utilizing AI to help them troubleshoot, to help even give them code. So, what do you think it's good for our kids to be experimenting with that as well?
Yeah. I mean, the world is using AI. If you don't start using it, you're going to fall behind. Can you imagine not using the internet when it came out? And you would be behind after a while. So AI is the new thing, and I think it would be foolish to completely dismiss it as a computer science teacher and not allow them to use it even. Now there's a point where you become reliant on it, and that would be a problem,
Mhm.
I think.
Mhm.
But AI isn't meant to replace the design, right? The AI is a co-pilot, if you will. It's not meant to be the driving factor of the program, right? It's not going to do those things I was just talking about. What's the most efficient? It might be able to figure out if you prompt it correctly,
Mm.
but you
Yeah.
have to know to make the correct prompts. You have to have that understanding still. So the AI is definitely a very useful tool, and it's getting better. It's not always right, but even the AI is itself a program that is, being designed and being improved upon, right? And so, um, knowing how to use it, I think, is an important skill, and definitely something I'm looking more into and learn how to utilize into the classroom. Um, and but like I said, becoming so reliant on it, it's not going to replace the coding, right? It's just
Yes.
meant to,
Yeah.
to be that co-pilot there to really assist, and speed up the process, right? Because I know in my my classes, they're like, how many semicolons do I have to type, typing the lines over. So so yeah, it has a lot of benefit, right, in knowing how to use it. Right, it's not just to speed up the process. It can come up with ways that you maybe didn't think of, help you brainstorm. There's a lot of stuff there that it is very beneficial for, right? And if you don't understand something, a lot of times it can give you a little bit of clarity on something you didn't understand too. So, but it doesn't replace the design and the problem solving, right? That's still going to be human based.
And knowing the big picture, right? And knowing the
Absolutely.
elements of it for sure. Because I know my son did the same thing. He's coding and he wanted to do it without AI first. And then he was like, oh, and then he kind of started to integrate and then it got a little much. And he's like, wait, I'm not learning what I want to learn. I want to learn more myself so that I know how it works. And so then he started integrating things. And I thought it was really interesting. He took I said, did you write all this yourself? And he's like, well, some of it I did and some of it I didn't. Some of it I
Yeah.
took from other places where I created other code and found out that it matched here and it worked better there. And I
Yeah.
was like, wow, that's pretty amazing.
Yeah. We had, that's a big thing in computer science classes where there's a lot of forgery and stuff. But we've always, the teachers I've worked with, have always encouraged, like, hey, if you find code, right, to use, source it, give credit to where you got it from, right?
Right.
That's really important in commenting in your code. But like that's what real programmers do. They borrow, you know, they use what other people have done, they reinvent the wheel, reverse engineer, if you will, what other people are doing. And so that's good coding, that's good programming. That's not I don't want to discourage that, So
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
AI is just a different source for that. A pretty powerful one, Um
Absolutely.
and while we're on the AI thing, a lot of people are concerned that it's gonna, like, take over all the jobs too, but, like, I was reading an article, I think it was Forbes, um, where they were just, talking about how, like, people's fear of AI taking over all the kind of the tech jobs,
Mhm.
and it can generate basic code still, but, it still can introduce big time errors and things like that, but, um, the article was saying how it's even more important now to have more critical to have a big background
Mm.
in computer science, um, now than ever, because it's not going to replace the human creators, the creative part of it.
Yeah, absolutely. At least not for a while anyways, until like Kenyon that's what Kenyon tells me. But
Yeah.
at least not for a long time. But when we get super intelligence, who knows, right? But the but I did want to ask you about people who are not, so let's say my kid is not into coding. Let's say my kid
Mhm,
doesn't really like coding. Like what would my kid need to learn to
mhm,
be computer literate?
mm. Yeah. Well, there's some generic computer skills, just kind of knowing how to use files and things like that, I think. And in the computer science course, a lot of times you go a little bit deeper into that with scripting and things like that too. So I think you get a better understanding for it. Just a generic computer use through that and how things are saved because you start to realize, oh, that's why certain things are saved the way they are. Like I remember the first time. This is back to that college class. I'm like, oh, that's interesting. I didn't understand why it was saved in that kind of format. Back then. So there's a lot of little things that give you a better understanding, a better appreciation of things, and help you to understand the technologies that you are using. Um,
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I also think even on intro level courses, a lot of students, you learn a lot of good writing technique. And this is one of the things I never felt I was a good writer, but through coding, I feel like my writing skills have been enhanced a lot because you learn how to organize your thoughts better. You learn how to write methods to simplify it and make it more readable, right? And to be able to explain, like your code should be able to, like, I should be able to look at your code and know what it's doing, right? So,
Mhm.
um, that it is really interesting. I had a student one time even tell me the same thing is like, you know, I wasn't expecting like the writing skills that were developed in this class, which is very insightful for a 10th grader. But,
Very. Yeah.
but, it really made me think too, just like it's really helping you structure things. So it's like that analytical side of your brain, but also works on, the more language arts side of your brain too, with how you structure things, how it's explained so it can be understood and read. Most programming jobs are maintenance jobs. You have to read what someone else already has,
Mm.
and if you're the one writing the code and that's not understandable, that makes it very difficult on the next person or yourself following up. I'll give an example. We always give a project at the end of the year, and I remember making this program I was doing. Kids that year, for whatever reason, were into this ultimate tic tac toe game. So I was like, I want to code it because that's what they're all doing.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I did it, but I didn't comment it well. And I remember the next year going back to try and improve upon it a little bit when I was kind of given a couple example programs for them. And there was an issue with it, and I couldn't read my code. And I remember thinking, this is like my first or second year teaching the AP course. And
Yeah.
I remember thinking, I'm going to harp on commenting in code because this is what happens in industry. I couldn't even read my own, and I'm the one that wrote the code. So, I think, I think one of the biggest surprises for me with computer science is not just developing that analytical problem solving, that is that like organizing your thoughts and being able to read what's going on too.
Oh, that's such a good point. I love that you brought that up because yeah, it's communication. Ultimately, you're communicating with a
Hmm.
computer, you're
Right.
communicating with people. It's all the same in how those skills are all the same. I
Hmm.
remember when I was in geometry, I my mom was always like, "Oh, she hated math." And she was like, "I hated those proof things. They're so stupid." And I'm like, "Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
I love proofs because they're
Yeah.
like an essay. If
Hmm.
this is true, then that, then this and that, and then that makes
Right.
and this, that, that." And I'm like, "It makes perfect sense." And she was like, "I don't know." But it's just like an essay to me. Like you have a hypothesis, you have a thesis statement, which is like your thesis statement. Anyway, I love it. It's so fun. That's a great, great benefit. Absolutely. While we're thinking about and we were talking about AI, it made me think about parents and my son being as old as he is, we were very, very particular and intentional in how we exposed him and let him be independent
Mhm.
with computer access just in general, but also allowing him to utilize AI and
Mhm.
explore it on his own that way. What are your suggestions about for parents about being cautious about that or how to curate those kinds of that kind of independence or creativity?
Hmm. That's a great question because I have a son that's really getting into technology, and we're at a point where like I think we need to really monitor this very closely, make sure what's going on. So, um, my first thought with that is just the monitoring, just know what's going on,
Yep.
but at the same time, not hampering the creativity. I know with your son, he's really dove into it, right, and really learned a lot from it. So I think with a lot of things as parents, it's like you just don't want to squash the creativity. That was a big part of me with homeschooling when I first started with our kids. It was like I wanted them to enjoy the learning process. I wanted them to like be excited about what they were learning, and I
Yeah.
think allowing them to stretch a little bit, right? Even if they are getting to a limit, you know, that's where the monitoring is important. But allowing them to get there at least allows them to reach kind of the potential that they can get to. And that way I'm not limiting them by my limited creativity that I may have. I know a lot of the curriculum I picked originally were not really my forte. Reading wasn't my favorite things. I did a lot of Charlotte Mason stuff early on,
Mhm.
just because I was like, I don't want my my lack of interest in reading, fiction stories to rub off on them. I want them to still want to read and things like that. So I think allowing the creativity as far as you can go until you get to a point where you feel that you need to pull it back. And but at least it allows them to grow and find out where they can go with it.
1000%. And Kenyon and I actually did a few episodes on AI and using AI in homeschool. If you want to go back and listen to
Oh,
those or
cool.
watch those, we definitely covered a lot of topics on just the in general, like what is it, how does it work,
Mhm.
what things can you do with it, what's good program, what's a good AI for this, what's a good
Yeah.
AI for that, and he did all
Mhm.
that. And then we talked about how to integrate it into your homeschool in a healthy way. And I think you're right. One of the things is for us, computers are always in public spaces, and then
Mhm.
they're always monitored. And we have developed a culture where he shares things with us and he's excited to share. So he
Mhm.
definitely was always bringing stuff
Mhm.
like, look what I did. And I'm like looking at this code. I don't know what you're talking about. And he's
Yeah.
like, this is what this does. And this is what this does. And this is what, oh, okay. That makes more sense. And he'll
Mhm.
show us the chat GPT or whatever Grok or whatever he's using
Mhm.
the responses. And so we monitor that. We started out doing it together with him, and then we always recommend that, and then monitoring it closely. That's something for all of us to think about for sure as that becomes utilized even more. So
Absolutely.
and then the last thing I want to do is I definitely want to focus on what are good places for us to start.
Mhm.
And then what I also want to make sure that you talk about is if we're going to use it as a class, if we're going to use it as a class for high schoolers,
Mhm.
like, is there anything we need to have in there for sure? Or what does it get? I know we were talking about this before we started recording, how it can be applied to transcripts for
Mhm.
colleges and high schools. So, what are your thoughts, first of all, on where do we even start with this whole thing? Let's say we don't even have high schoolers, or we
Mhm.
do, but they haven't done much on a computer. Where do we even start?
That's a fantastic question. I think for little, so when we first started, we started doing code.org. They have like free
Mhm.
services, and you just kind of follow along curriculum and do the task, and they're very game like.
Yeah.
There's like a little squirrel. I think the Ice Age squirrel is on there, and you're trying to get through this little maze by giving
Yeah.
it prompts. And you start getting a feel for it, and it's very game like. My intro course is very similar to that, even for high schoolers. So that's a great way to learn because it's engaging, it's fun, it's problem solving. Again, it's everything for me always comes back to the logic part of it that you're trying to
Mhm.
develop. So I think early on, I think those elementary ages, there's a lot of good resources like that. And I think those resources are even great for high school and middle school age groups too.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So the only concern I have with some of those courses is when they get stuck. And this is kind of what I try to provide too with my services that I'm doing is just when they're stuck, they don't have a place to go, right? The
Right.
AI can help with that sometimes. I think that's a good resource for it. But a lot of times I hear they get stuck. And a lot of times in high schools, they use those same things. They're just kind of checkpoints where, like, hey, you got to do this test. And they get stuck on 5 out of 12 and they're stuck at five forever. And they don't have
Mm.
a computer science teacher a lot of times. They just have someone who's monitoring what they're doing. And so a lot of students, because there's not too many computer science teachers out there
Yeah, it
that
makes
really
sense,
know
but
the
it's
computer
crazy.
science. So
Yeah.
they get stuck. And when they get stuck, it's demoralizing sometimes. And
Mhm.
one of the big things when I start all my classes, um, and I even wrote an article of this of like the 5 tips for success in computer science. And the main thing is like trying to change your mindset of like, I don't know what this is, right? And not having that freeze component of, oh no, I can do it.
Yes.
This having that mindset change of this is different. This is exciting. I'm about to learn something new here, even instead of like, I don't know what to do and freezing. And
Yeah.
having that mindset shift is huge for success in computer science. Like I would probably say that's the number one key. And again, another skill I think just develops that helps you no matter what field or what career, whatever you're doing is
Absolutely.
having that mindset of not giving up on a problem and just still tackling it. And then to finish the question though, and when you get to high school, I mean, colleges like those AP courses, obviously. So the EP Computer Science course is a good one. There's two kind of main ones out there that I've seen. There's the Principles course and the EP CSA. And the Principles one is more of a generic computer one, and you kind of just get basic code. Some colleges don't even accept that. That may have changed over the past couple years, but when it first started out, it wasn't widely accepted. The AP Computer Science, that's the one that's focused on the logic.
Hmm.
That's one of my favorite ones to teach too. It's a very rigorous course, but challenging. But colleges love that one, and you get a lot of. You can get. I was telling you, in on Northern Virginia, they can get a lot of different kind of credits for it: science, math, and even foreign language in some places. So, um, but for college, that usually transfers well when you get the right scores on the AP exam, and could save you some money. Hopefully, when you get that into those
Do
universities.
they have to be AP courses in order for colleges to accept the computer science?
I think it depends on the level. The
Okay.
levels, so like but if you have a higher level than the AP course, some colleges do.
Hmm.
I do know of some that have. I don't know. I think you have to like apply for them. Things. I don't know the details on that one.
Yeah. Because a lot of the at least the A through G requirements, one of them is computer science that you can do for one of your sciences. So that's
Mm-hmm.
really amazing, and you might want to get clarity from the college you're looking at to see what that
Yeah.
requires. But yeah, I love that if you can look at your state for high school graduation requirements, like you said, and they can use it
Right.
for foreign language, math. Like
Yeah.
that's so cool.
Yeah. Some universities have like a test you can do to get credit for it too. I know
Oh, okay.
college I went to, you could if you felt that you had the knowledge for it, you could take a test to see if you had the knowledge to pass that course without taking the full course.
Yeah, so it gives you a lot of options, which is really
Yeah.
fun. So if you didn't want to do like two lab sciences and you have to try and find labs because it's so hard for us as homeschoolers
Hmm.
to find labs unless you're doing them at a junior college or community college. So
Hmm.
that's a great option that you can
Yeah.
use for that. So
Absolutely.
definitely look into that. And so Curtis, this has been so amazing. We have lots more to talk about, but I'm super excited because you have your new course out
Hmm.
and your new course. Tell us a little bit about where we can find you and your course information
Hmm.
and just tell us a little bit about the I know you have a free gift for us also.
Yeah. So I mentioned the little article I wrote. That's the 5 keys to success in that AP Computer Science A course. That's the big one that everyone's always looking for advice on. So
Mhm.
that's the free gift. Um, to find me, I have a Facebook page and I have a Facebook group. The Facebook page is Grover Computer Science, and the Facebook group is Computer Science Success Hub. It's just free resources just for success. Trying to start just conversations about computer science, give tips when I can, help out people when I can. And like I said, I really just want that to be a conversation hub, and I'll provide some resources that can help people out as they're looking for things. And I'm learning some new resources too as I dive into that.
Absolutely. This is so fun. I really encourage you to check out Curtis, get in contact with him and check out his computer science course because I know he just launched that and just
Mhm.
completed it and put it out there in the world. And it's going to be amazing because he absolutely knows what he's doing. And what a great way for you not to have to. I mean, you can learn beside your kid, you can learn from your kid. That's what I do. That's
I used to tell
it.
parents at the what do they call it? Meet the teachers night. I was like, "Hey, you guys are on the learning management system. You can join and do those. Just download the stuff and do it yourself too."
Absolutely. And he explains that he's like, oh, I'm doing da da da. And I'm like, mommy language, please. Like, and he's like,
Yeah.
right, okay. So basically, how it works, and he just telling me how it works, which is also a learning experience for
Mhm.
him and how to explain it in a different way without using all the computer jargon. Absolutely. Awesome. All right. I'm going to put all the notes, all the show notes together for you and the description, the comments, wherever you're watching, listening to this, you'll be able to download that free article and then also make sure you get in touch with Curtis. All the information will be in there for you to check out his Facebook page and group as well. So thank you so much for joining us today. And hey, you know what? If you found this valuable, could you please send this to somebody who also needs it? Because it really helps all of us get the word out there that there are resources available for homeschoolers that we didn't even know existed. And in this conversation that we have, and I know if you're listening to this, if you're watching it, you want to raise lifelong learners. And what Curtis was talking about today was about raising a lifelong learner, problem solving, and being able to be creative and putting something together in the real world situation that's applicable. This is all stuff that is total lifelong learners things. And so if we want to raise kids like that, we need to apply this kind of lesson into their life. So I'm excited. This is awesome, you guys. And please leave a little review on Apple Podcasts. Send me a DM and I'll send you something special. I'll talk to you again next week. Thanks for so much for joining us today, Curtis. I
Thanks
appreciate
for
you.
having me. Thanks for having me.
Bye-bye.